The 1990s were a massively transformative time for rap music as a tense rivalry developed between the East Coast and West Coast. At the center of that rivalry were two figureheads whose relationship had just fallen apart. Tensions between the two only continued to mount, along with their respective careers, culminating in tragedy, as both of their lives were cut short in a pair of murders that remain unsolved. Today, we examine the rivalry and murders of Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, part 2 of our exploration into the murders behind Tupac and Biggie. I'm your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me, continuing to hear about this case, Alfredo Diaz.
Hello. I knew that they were both murdered, and we don't quite know who was involved, and there's theories around like maybe this producer or this rapper was involved in the murder of this or whatever. I also don't know in which order they passed away in. So I'm very excited for the second half of this. I think the first half was very much getting to learn more about them and their history and how they came together. And now here's the big rivalry, right? That everybody knows about. East Coast, West Coast, juice, the beef, and it's gonna get messy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a part 2. Again, it's a rare oddity here for Red Web, but if you want to catch up with everything we've talked about up until this point, Fredo's right. We've talked about the history and the relationships of the two, Tupac and Biggie, and how their lives have intertwined, and at this point, we've just seen how their friendship has fallen apart. That is everything you need to know if you don't want to have all the details for what you're about to listen to. But yeah, today we're going to explore the coastal rivalry, how it was already pre-existing, and then, of course, the two and their role in that ongoing rivalry, how it escalated. And then we're going to talk about the timeline of Tupac's murder and Biggie's murder and the suspects behind both. And as always, before we dive in, I want to give a huge shout out to the exclusives happening at redwebpod.com. This week on Wednesday, Case Files Episode 1 hits YouTube. Of course, this is a stretch goal that you guys helped us earn. And all of these stretch goals will go on Patreon first by a week. So this one's coming out on YouTube. You can catch it right now on our Patreon. Also on Wednesday, we have a Patreon poll, and this Friday, as voted by you, we are doing a movie club on Donnie Darko. It's coming out on Friday, so come hang out with us. Check that out. How much will Christian hate it? I don't know. Will Jillian love it? Definitely. But where will Fredo and I land?
That's the real mystery. That's the real mystery right there.
All right, so like I said last week, there's a lot of sensitive topics in this case, so check out the description if you need to. But with that, let's dive in. While Tupac and Biggie became the icons associated with the coastal hip-hop rivalry, it existed before they emerged on the scene. The origins of the feud can be traced back a few years prior to the late 1980s. Given New York City was widely regarded as the birthplace of hip-hop, it was understood that West Coast artists felt as though they weren't given the same amount of press or media attention. It's also been reported that the artists on the West Coast felt that those on the East Coast saw themselves as superior and disrespected the West Coast. Tensions escalated in the late 80s when West Coast hip-hop groups started gaining more traction, gaining more popularity, kind of upsetting the status quo, so to speak. And East Coast rappers like Tim Dog began to mock West Coast rappers out of jealousy, out of envy, or out of threat, or just out of rivalry. It's all up for grabs. This continued with artists from both sides of the country dissing each other across tracks, and this is a well-established trend now to have diss tracks, and I feel like, and I'm speaking out of turn here, Christian, let me know if I'm wrong, but I feel like this is almost where diss tracks emerged from, or maybe were popularized by, was this rivalry.
Pretty much. I mean, battle rap had been a thing prior to this, and diss tracks have been a thing prior to this. But yeah, this rivalry between the East Coast and West Coast is really what popularized diss tracks and led to it becoming what it is even now.
That's a great point. I guess like diss tracks in the sense of like, that is my single on my album. Maybe that's the subtle delineation, but okay, yeah. So of course now, both sides of the country coming at each other, and as time moved on into the early 90s, two pillars of the feud came to be. On the West Coast, it was Suge Knight. Knight co-founded Death Row Records in 1991 with Dr. Dre, Dick Griffey, Harry O, and the DOC. On the other side of the country, Combs' Bad Boy Records was growing in popularity after its 1993 inception with the popularity of Biggie's first album. That's really the roots of that company and its explosion. Death Row Records' first releases were Dr. Dre's The Chronic and Snoop Doggy Dogg's Doggy Style.
Damn, that's fire, bro. The Chronic? Woo!
Right out of the gate.
Bangers.
So both were met, as Fredo kind of indicated, with great success, and Knight went shopping for more talent. Of course, you keep the train rolling. You have this success, you have these great artists, you reinvest in it, find more people. While he approached several artists, he had his eyes set on Tupac. So Knight first approached Tupac in 1993, giving him $200,000 to contribute a song to a movie soundtrack. At that time, Tupac continued to release with Interscope Records. That said, Tupac's situation changed dramatically not long after. I set the roots of this in part 1, but we'll get into it here. So if you recall, last week we talked about Tupac being arrested, charged with sodomy, sexual abuse, and illegal weapons possessions. That was in November of 1993. And as the rivalry begins to heat up, I think it's time to unfold the details of this specific case that I've been having you hold on to for about a week, because it plays a big role in the ongoing escalation between the East and the West Coast. So on December 1st, 1994, the day after the shooting at Quad Recording Studio, Tupac was to appear in court to await the conviction of the Jackson case. And retroactively, thinking about all the odd timing and people knowing people, and maybe was this intentional, was this a setup, etc., it is interesting that this happened the day before he was meant to go to court. And I could, play devil's advocate once again. This could be because you wanted him in the studio to record before he was potentially arrested. It also could be that you wanted to off the guy before he was arrested.
Right, before he was on the stand.
Right. So again, December 1, he is now coming into the courthouse. He's bandaged, he's confined to a wheelchair, and Tupac is pronounced guilty of sexual abuse. He was acquitted of the sodomy and illegal weapons possession charges, and his bail was set at $3 million with a minimum of 18 months in jail.
Oh my God. That'd ruin your whole life and career.
Instantly. Yeah. He then turned himself in later that month to the authorities on December 23rd, 1994, to await sentencing. I believe this delay in turning himself in was because he was freshly out of the hospital, freshly out of surgery, so perhaps it was to recover. I didn't look into these details specifically, so I, take it with a grain of salt here. That's my speculation. On February 7th, 1995, he was sentenced to 1.5 to 4.5 years in prison. While serving, he spent the majority of his time at Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora, New York. Although his third album released right before he went away to prison, and it was met with great success, Tupac was still running out of money. We kind of opened up that thought in part 1, but yeah, he was paying for a lot of legal fees. He was a supporter of his extended family. And so it's not like, he was famous, he was well known, but it's not like money is coming out from everywhere. So like I said, between these legal fees and supporting his family, he couldn't afford this bail. It's reported that at this time, Tupac told his then wife, Keisha Morris, to reach out to Knight. She did so, and Tupac was sent $15,000, after which he invited Knight to come and speak with him. The two had formed a bond, and Knight told Tupac that Death Row Records would be better for him than Interscope. He also vowed something that Tupac wanted more than anything: freedom. So now he's saying here, I can get you out of this. I can get you out of jail. And I also think that you should come work with me at Death Row instead of Interscope.
That's a big investment. Also, it's the kind of thing where, if you say yes to something like that, you're kind of, indebted to them. And they're going to want to return. It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. And I mean, yes, Death Row's got a lot of great names. Looking back on it, they got a lot of great hits, and maybe they were the right record label for him. But you can't deny the fact that Tupac's under the thumb, right? He's saying, if you sign with Death Row Records, Knight's out here saying, I'll bail you out of prison. And so it's kind of a difficult decision to make, especially if you want your freedom back, especially if you're trying to support your family. So whether it was good for him or not, it's kind of a deal you can't refuse.
Right.
But he agreed. This was monumental in the feud, as Tupac was never really officially defined as a West Coast rapper. But of course, signing with Death Row Records firmly establishes him as a California, nay, Los Angeles rapper. Now, immediately after his decision came the Source Awards. The awards show took place on August 3rd, 1995 at the Paramount Theater in Madison Square Garden. The show, put on by the Source magazine, was intended to celebrate hip-hop from both coasts, maybe becoming kind of like a unifying sort of event, but also truly to celebrate the hip-hop coming from all these incredible artists. Regarding of which side you subscribe to, there's amazing art coming out. The genre hadn't properly been celebrated by the award shows like the Grammys, and the Source wanted to give the fans and the artists the recognition that the genre deserved. And so it does, on paper, feel like a great moment. However, the night didn't go quite as expected. The show opened with a 10-minute long medley from hits from Death Row Records, with the label's artists on stage in show of power. Tupac was still incarcerated some 320 miles away from Madison Square Garden, so to announce his signing, he's not fully bailed out of jail yet, to be totally clear, Death Row Records brought out a cardboard cutout of him on stage.
Okay. A little weird. A little speaker box attached to it.
Right. So, unfortunately, the audience didn't really seem to notice this two-dimensional flat object version of Tupac, and honestly, the reveal kind of fell flat because of that. They didn't really notice that that was going on. So, noticing this, Suge Knight then went on stage and made it absolutely clear. No, Tupac is signing with Death Row Records. Let's make a big celebration out of this. And met with boos and a displeased audience, Knight announced, quote, "I'd like to tell Tupac to keep his guards up. We're riding with him. Any artist out there that wants to be an artist and wants to stay a star and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be in all the videos, all the records, dancing, come to Death Row."
Taking a shot at P. Diddy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in that, this is a play to all of the up-and-coming artists out there, while also taking a jab specifically at Bad Boy Records in a direct diss to Combs, who Knight often said wanted to share in the fame with his artists. Now, of course, he made his own music and things, but he's like, why are you you're the executive producer. Stop trying to get in all the videos. Stop trying to get in all the records and you're dancing in the background. This is tomfoolery. The crowd booed once again when Dr. Dre went on stage to accept the award for Producer of the Year. Combs attempted to smooth things over to his credit, stating, quote, "All this East and West, that needs to stop. So give it up to everybody from the East and the West that won tonight. One love," end quote, before presenting the Solo Artist of the Year award to Snoop Doggy Dogg.
Wow, West Coast won big then.
West Coast, I don't want to say swept because I don't remember all the awards that night, but they definitely won big with Solo Artist of the Year and Producer of the Year for sure. Despite the chaos of that night, things remained calm for another month. Then on September 24th, 1995, problems continued. Knight and Combs were both attending a birthday party for artist Jermaine Dupri in Atlanta, Georgia. In Knight's crew was Jai Hassan Jamal Robles, aka Big Jake. Now, Big Jake was a 240-pound former gang member who wanted to learn about the music industry. Tensions were already high, with reports coming that the two entourages were feuding all night. Things came to a head when someone ran up to Jake with a semi-automatic weapon and shot him multiple times in the abdomen as he was getting into a limo. Now, Knight reportedly stood over Big Jake's body and told Combs, quote, "I think you had something to do with this." Sadly, Big Jake succumbed to his injuries 2 weeks later, and yet no one was ever tried for this murder. No one was ever put away for this murder.
Wow. I mean, it was wild back then, and that's not even that far back. The fact that no one fell on the sword for it, though, is a little crazy.
Right, because that was something that happened a lot.
But then again, I could see everybody, both sides, everybody on both sides. You're not gonna snitch. You're just not. You'd be blacklisted. You get got yourself, and then also, you know, the opposite side is gonna want to take revenge in their own manner. They want to be able to, like, we're on the street, say that, like, you know, they got the revenge, they did it, etc.
Right.
I mean, it's a whole thing. So yeah, it doesn't quite surprise me that no one spoke up about it. I'm sure everyone knew who it was, but they ain't gonna say nothing.
I mean, at this point, we've already seen moments where just throwing shade at somebody because something went down could put you into the crosshairs, literally. I mean, Tupac talking about Haitian Jack in part 1. So now if we're talking about, like, hey, I think so-and-so hit somebody, or I think they set up the hit.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you're begging for violence at that point. So yeah, you're totally right. The network is locked down. Everybody knows everybody. So shortly after Big Jake's passing, Knight wired a $1.4 million bond to the New York Court of Appeals and officially bailed out Tupac. He then flew to upstate New York and was waiting for Tupac in a white limousine. For the next few weeks, Tupac reportedly spent all of his time in the recording studio creating music. He released the previously mentioned diss track, Hit 'Em Up, and was writing Against All Odds and Bomb First, My Second Reply, all believed to be diss tracks straight to Biggie. Despite this, both Biggie and Combs maintained that Biggie never released a retaliation track about Tupac. And they still, at least Combs to this day, maintains that that initial "Who Shot Ya" was never about Tupac in the first place. Though, there are many who think that some of Biggie's lyrics call out the West Coast rapper, Combs has stated that those are all just simply misinterpreted. And so again, when you look at the lyrics, it is poetry. And so you can kind of see a multiple meaning, and that's how they're meant to be. And so some people read diss track out of it, and some people read that Biggie's just talking about his own life. Combs actually argues that if Biggie were to diss Tupac, he would have simply said his name. He would have called him out straight up.
See, that's the thing. Like, if it was a diss him, he would have actually just straight up did it. And I don't think, like, Biggie would have been super passive about it. I fall in the camp of its misinterpretation, but this is not knowing the actual lyrics and then the history that could tie that to Tupac.
Yeah. I mean, there's no getting Tupac wrong. He literally talks about Biggie in details that can only be attributed to him. And, you know, in the heat of the moment, in kind of going to jail for something that perhaps Tupac was or was not guilty for, or felt not guilty for, either way, if he felt set up, yeah, he's angry. And so that anger could lead to a misinterpretation that simply escalated. And that's where we're at. We're in a moment where we're constantly seeing escalations, whether they're valid or not, whether they're earned or not, it is what happened. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Shady Rays. You know that moment when you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, maybe at the gas station 3 states away when you're on that road trip? I think we've all been there in some way or another, but Shady Rays is here and they have changed the game. These sunglasses are made for real life, they're great looking, they're polarized, they're durable, and they're not stupidly expensive. And here's the wild part. If you lose or break them, even on day 1, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair, no guilt trip, just replacements. I've talked about Shady Rays in the past. All of my sunglasses are Shady Rays. I'm a big fan of the polarized lenses, but I'm also a big fan of the fact that they keep putting out new styles. So no matter what your aesthetic is or whatever the season is, they've always got a pair ready to go for you. So now we can all wear our sunglasses without fear, whether it's on hikes, at concerts, on a boat. I've done the thing where I've looked over the boat and they've plopped into the ocean and off they go for a shark to wear forever. But we've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com and use code REDWEB for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Shadyrays.com, promo code REDWEB, 35% off. This episode of Red Web is also sponsored by Rocket Money. You know, a lot of people aren't aware of how much they spend each month. Do you know how much you spend in subscriptions or how much you spend for takeout or delivery? It's probably more than you think, and if it's me, it's definitely more than I think, and I have Rocket Money to thank for pointing that out because I need to wind that back. Rocket Money is an app designed to help manage your money better. Like I said, I do use Rocket Money, and it helps highlight all of my bad habits for spending, any subscriptions I've forgotten about, but it also quantifies and categorizes all my different spending. So every single month I can see what money is coming in and what money is going out, so I can make sure I chase my savings goals every single month. Now, Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money shows you all your expenses in one place, including subscriptions you forgot about. If you see a subscription you no longer want, Rocket Money will help you cancel it. Their dashboard lays out your total financial picture, including bill due dates and paydays, in a way that's easy to digest. You can even automatically create custom budgets based on your past spending. Rocket Money's 5 million members have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, with members saving up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/redweb today. That's rocketmoney.com/redweb. rocketmoney.com/redweb. And so now this leads us up to Tupac's murder. On September 7th, 1996, Tupac and Knight attended the Bruce Seldon and Mike Tyson boxing match there in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand. As they were leaving the match, one of Knight's crew members, Trayvon Trey Lane, noticed a man named Orlando Anderson. You might have heard of him as Baby Lane. So Trayvon Lane was a member of the Mob Piru gang and had recognized Anderson, who was a member of the Crips, as part of a crew that once attempted to rob Lane earlier that year. And to give you some quick crash course history here, Mob Piru is part of the Bloods gang, infamously rivals with the Crips. And so if he's like, that's a member of the rival gang, you tried to get one up on me or rob me earlier this year, I'm already a little bit on my back foot right now. So Lane tells Knight and Tupac, who then themselves confronted Anderson. The pair began to brawl before it was broken up by hotel security. And after this, Tupac left and went back to his hotel at the Luxor, Las Vegas, and told his then girlfriend, Kadada Jones, about this incident. So Kadada Jones is the daughter of Quincy Jones, Rashida Jones's sister. I thought that was really, really interesting because like how connected everybody is.
Right.
But yeah, so he goes back to his hotel room and tells her, his girlfriend at that time. At this point, he also changes and he goes back out again, this time with Knight on his way towards Club 662 to perform a charity concert. And this is where we have a loose but pretty tight timeline at the same time, between 11 and 11:05 p.m., the pair were stopped by Las Vegas Police Bike Patrol for not having license plates, but also for playing their stereo too loudly. They proved that the license plates were in the trunk of the car, and the pair was let go without a citation. Approximately at 11:10 p.m., while waiting at a red light at an intersection, East Flamingo Road and Covell Lane, a car with two women pulled up on the left side of their car, and Tupac kind of engaged with those women and invited them to join them at Club 662. And then very soon thereafter, at approximately 11:15 p.m., a white late model Cadillac, which just kind of means a brand new Cadillac, pulled up on the right side of their vehicle. From the backseat of the Cadillac, a gunman fired several shots from a Glock 22, later found to be .40 caliber Smith & Wesson bullets. Tupac was hit 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, once in the thigh. Knight was hit in the head by a bullet fragment. Despite being injured, Knight was still able to drive them about 1 mile away from where that scene had taken place to Las Vegas Boulevard and Harbin Avenue. There, once again, they were pulled over by LVPD Bike Patrol, who then radioed in to paramedics to let them know about the situation. So Knight essentially fled. He was still able to drive despite the bullet fragment hitting him.
Right, that's wild.
Yeah.
And then here comes Tupac, shot with 4 times?
4 times.
That's on top of the 5 times previously?
Yes.
Then shot 9 times?
Yeah.
Jesus.
So at this point, Tupac was heavily sedated, and ultimately he was put into a medically induced coma after he attempted to get up out of the hospital bed several times. We don't know where he was going or what he was trying to do, so for his rest, for his wellness, they put him into a coma. Now, on Friday, September 13th, 1996, Tupac died of cardiac arrest, caused by respiratory failure after the removal of his right lung. Coincidentally, I believe, if memory serves, this is 3 years, but to the exact day that Biggie Smalls' first solo album came out.
Oh.
But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so September 13th, 1996, his mother made the decision to cease medical treatment, and he was pronounced dead at 4:03 p.m. And this is something that's lost on me every time I think about this case. You think about how big his personality was, how famous he was, how talented he was. He was 25 years old.
Damn.
Yeah, 25 years young. That is a wild thing to remember.
Boy was in his prime.
Truly in his prime. Who knows what he would have gone on to do from here?
Yeah.
The changes he would have made, the things he would have stood for, the voices he would have raised. It's hard to think about.
I mean, you think about it too, like, man, that the development I had from 25 to 30 was massive. And so even then, it's just like the amount of stuff, the changes in his personality as a rapper, all that, like, yeah, we missed out on a lot.
Yeah. I always say it when I was going through my late 20s, I was becoming the person I was kind of going to be longer term. He wasn't even himself yet. He didn't find his full self yet.
Right.
in my experience, right? I agree with you. Though it's unclear exactly why in the days and weeks following the murder, Knight and his crew were largely uncooperative with authorities, but many believe that this was out of fear of rival gang retaliation. Obviously, they don't have all the answers. A hit is carried out on both of them, and Knight survives, and obviously him and his whole crew are not going to sit there and start throwing names out because honestly, after this, you're like, okay, this is too real. I don't need this to come back around. And at the time of the shooting, Knight and Tupac had an entourage of about 10 vehicles following them, which I actually never knew about. Despite this, though, no one could give any useful information to the police about who fired upon Knight and Tupac that evening. I mean, even when referencing the Cadillac, we know it was white and we know it was a newer model, but that's about it.
Did Shug have any issues with Tupac at the time?
We will talk about him in the theories.
Because Shug has colorful history.
He does. He's going to come up, I'll tell you this right now. He is the only theory, the main kind of suspect / theory for Biggie, but he does come up here for Tupac as well.
Okay.
And there's kind of a macro level theory that maybe he's part of both, but we'll talk about all of that. But there was and has been a lot of investigation since this case. I'm going to give you the high levels because some of this will be unfolded during the theories. But immediately following the shooting, police noted that they had no leads on the case. Again, witnesses who were in Tupac's crew were uncooperative with police, leaving authorities at somewhat of a stalemate on how to proceed. There were clues gathered at the scene. That's how they knew the caliber of the bullets because the casings were there. But ultimately, the case kind of went cold until 2002, when the Las Vegas Police Department reopened the case. This brought a lot more public attention to the case, and it's why, as you pointed out, Fredo, to your memory in part 1, why this case kind of ebbs and flows. It kind of resurges over the years, and one of those reasons is in 2002 they reopened it. New technology had become available, and they were able to re-examine what little evidence they did have. They conducted more interviews. This is where we get some more insight into some of the other crew members and some of the things we have on record to this day. That trail, though, unfortunately, also went cold, and it wasn't until the release of a 2018 documentary called Unsolved, the Tupac and Biggie murders, that public curiosity once again reignited, carrying it into the modern day. And after its release, theories about the murders and those involved really began to circulate and take a little bit more shape. And then it wouldn't be until 2023, just 2 short years ago, that an arrest would be made for the murder of Tupac Shakur. We'll talk about that, but it's not an open and closed case. It's not done yet.
Ooh.
But we'll talk about that man here in a bit.
Did not know that. And that's recent.
Very. But of course, we're going to start with more of a conspiracy theory. I kind of struggle to say that, but it's not really a theory. It's, I don't know. It is the idea that Tupac faked his death. And there's a lot of interesting reasons why people believe that, but let's just dive in. Because very soon after Tupac's passing, theories began to arise that the rapper might have faked his own death to start a new life out of the limelight. There's a lot of reasons why this might be. There's nothing in particular, no specifics, but it could be because he wanted to avoid the violence. Again, he's still supporting his family, and maybe once he made enough money, he wanted to kind of leave that. We could speculate until the sun goes down, but that's the theory that arose quickly after his murder. This was propelled by his posthumous album called The Don Killuminati, the 7-Day Theory, which is commonly shortened to Machiavelli. I'm sure you've heard of that. This was the stage name under which he released this album. Machiavelli starts to open up a whole new line of thinking, and this is honestly one of the first conspiracy theories of this ilk that really spurred my mind on and got me curious about the unknown and got me curious about things like Illuminati, and then that unfolds into what we have here with Red Web, the unknown.
Okay.
So Machiavelli is said to be a reference to Niccolo Machiavelli. Very similar but simplified spelling, Machiavelli. This was a 16th century Italian political philosopher and diplomat best known for his book, The Prince. Machiavelli wrote about strategic deception, manipulation, and the use of cunning to achieve power or survive dangerous situations. Tupac reportedly studied Machiavelli while he was in prison and admired his ideas on outsmarting enemies and controlling one's destiny, which some interpret as influencing the choice of Machiavelli as his persona. Again, some of this is kind of speculation, but there is hard evidence that he at least had read the book The Prince, just based on some of his lyrics. So we're inferring some things based on his new stage name and based on some lyrics and things. But to be Machiavellian is to be cryptic, is to be secretive.
Right.
It's associated with deceit and manipulation. So fans then from this suggest that the adoption of the name, coupled with the album's themes of betrayal, resurrection, and secrecy, implies that Tupac may have planned to stage his own death or create a symbolic rebirth. Now, it's been quite some time, and Tupac has not had that symbolic rebirth, which to me kind of deflates the theory. He didn't come back onto the scene explosive in any way. That doesn't stop people from seeing him. It's kind of like the Elvis situation.
Right.
People see Tupac all over the place, and it's kind of like a Men in Black sighting or a UFO sighting. Like, is that him? I don't know.
It's probably just someone that looks like him.
Right. And it is, usually. But we never know. But the thing is, authorities have vehemently denied this theory, and they are well positioned to do so, having been intimately involved with that case. If they got a cold body somewhere at some point in history, I think they're going to know. They're like, no, this isn't no faking. This isn't a stunt. But it is interesting because it reminds me of that Chappelle sketch where he's like, if someone hits this, if you bump the table one more time, then this record might skip. I told you, stop hitting the table. And it was all this stuff where they're like, well, how okay, this applies to Biggie as well. They're like, how are they rapping about 9/11? How are they rapping about all this stuff that hadn't happened unless they're somewhere else and ghost dropping this stuff?
Right.
I forgot about that sketch until just now.
I did forget about that sketch too.
He's like, I'm talking about John William Smith from City Council. He ran in 93 out in Oakland. You probably didn't hear about it, or whatever the name was. But it gets more and more relevant until he's rapping about someone in the club.
Exactly. Like literally in the club. Everyone's like, what the hell is going on right now?
So yeah, you see how this idea that Tupac is still alive has absolutely impressed upon pop culture and the zeitgeist. Also, I just remembered, he says George W., and he's referencing George W. Smith from Oakland in 93. That's what the name was, because they're like, how do you know about George W. Bush?
Right. He was like, wait a minute. And then they'll be like, nah, the guy from my time, essentially.
Right. You probably didn't hear about it. Specific reference. Honestly, one of my favorite sketches of all time. All right.
Good one.
So you mentioned Suge Knight, so let's talk about him. Theories have swirled that it was actually Suge Knight who might have counterintuitively ordered the hit on Tupac. Rumors have said that Knight was concerned that Tupac had intentions to leave Death Row Records, either to start his own label or to pivot into acting full-time. Again, speculation galore here. There were also reports that Knight owed Tupac money from royalties and album sales, and maybe wasn't paying those out. And so, I mean, this is the ultimate decision. I owe you money, but not if you're dead. I don't know.
That's true.
But here's the thing, that actually has some weight to it because Tupac's mother actually sued Death Row Records after the label claimed that Tupac owed them $5 million. And so now it kind of becomes this he said, she said speculation cesspool of like, what's reality here?
Yeah.
And that's the thing about a record label is you could, and honestly, since day one, at least now, I don't know, probably also in the 90s, the day you sign is the day you owe. You are in debt. They might front you money. That money is not really yours. That's production expense money. And so it's all meant to be paid back with album sales and things. And so I don't know how deals were done in the 90s. It's possible, I will just say, that Tupac also owed them something.
I think it's really possible. But I mean, if they're all rolling together and everything's fine, I don't know. It could also just be like they roll together until it's like, all right, we're going to roll together and now you're going to get shot,
Like I'm going to get something out of you until you become kind of a problem, and now we're just done with that.
Yeah, pretty much.
It is like an extreme solution to anyone owing you money. But I guess reputations were definitely something that people kept close to their hearts because death is the ultimate decision to decide. But ultimately, this back and forth between Tupac's mother and this idea that maybe Knight owed Tupac. It kind of went back and forth, and this was an indication to many that the label was not doing well financially. Whatever the truth was, that there was something below all that. And some pointed to that as potentially another motive for Knight to commit this crime. However, again, this theory is highly speculative, as it would put Knight at great risk to be in the car with Tupac while the killing was carried out. It would be, in fact, pretty wild to say, carry the hit out, I'll be driving, just don't hit me. And I'm like, they're firing through tinted windows, hoping to hit your target, and you're in there.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. And it's not like Sugar's wearing like, I don't know, a bulletproof vest or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're just going to unload. And like, unlike the movies, bullets go straight through cars, straight through aluminum. It's not like in the movies where you see someone hide behind a car door and they get shot like 50 times. Yeah. No, those bullets are going straight through.
Right. Also, when they shoot the front of a car, I'm like, your engine block is going to seize. Like, you've just permeated the engine itself.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Or at least parts of it. But yeah, they go right through, unless it's the magic bullet and we're talking about JFK, in which case it can and does ricochet off body parts and other things. And I don't know, but you're right. Don't go hiding behind car doors.
No.
So anyway, speculation, but he will come back around in the next one. Now we move on to the next theory. This one has a lot of meat to this one. So on September 29th, 2023, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis was arrested for the murder of Tupac Shakur. Davis was allegedly a longtime leader of the Southside Crips, the gang that Tupac and his crew got into an altercation with that night. He was reportedly the shot caller that night in the Cadillac that rolled up, shot Tupac. So it seems that he would then be responsible for his death. He's given many interviews with police and media outlets over the years, piecing together his account of the night. He's also co-authored the book Compton Street Legend, which details his involvement with the case. However, he claims that he has never read the book and that he simply co-authored, and the co-author themselves took liberties that he didn't approve. And so that gets kind of confusing. Why would you put your name on a book that talks about these things that could implicate you? But
right. That just seems kind of messy, and like either you were just completely away from it and detached from it and then just put your name on it.
Like, it seems that he spoke the story and then this co-author wrote it down and filled it in, essentially. But yeah, weird that he didn't read through it or approve things or what have you. But Davis claims that he has nothing to do with Tupac's death and was at his home in Los Angeles, a different state away, when it all went down. However, Davis had earlier claimed in 2 separate interviews that Combs had offered to pay him $1 million to have Tupac killed. Davis claims that Combs said that he needed to, quote, get rid of Knight and Shakur. Davis also claims that Combs would give Davis $1 million to, quote, handle the problem. Both the DEA and the Department of Justice have reported these claims. And so it does sound like a sound interview. And so, like, you're throwing Sean Combs out here, P. Diddy, as the person hiring the hit or calling for the hit, but then you're saying, oh, but I wasn't there, and also I was in Los Angeles. It gets a little blurry here.
Man, this seems like the most unreliable person.
Yeah.
Like with the whole book thing and then the interviews, it's like this guy's going back and forth and like doing it on record, which is just, what is what, dude? You're confusing.
Right. And I think it gets confusing too because he was under oath in court, I believe, when he was asked about this very specific thing, and he goes, oh, and again, this is off the top of my head. I remember reading something that he was like, oh no, Combs offered someone else $1 million to carry out the hit, or that, so Davis was like, I just knew about it, but I wasn't involved. And I'm like, you're kind of cutting it all different ways. You're fully out of it, you're lightly in it, you're fully in it. But either way, if you had information and you withheld that, that's what is that? Not interfering with a case, but kind of like...
Yeah, I forgot there's a proper term for that.
Yeah, what's that word? Something of obstruction of justice.
Yeah.
Obstruction of justice. Which again, I don't know how that's applied. It's kind of like placebo effect. It's just everywhere. Okay, so let's get back to brass tacks here. Combs, in response to this, has constantly denied any involvement in Tupac's murder, though I know a lot of people still to this day, especially given all the other stuff that P. Diddy has been involved with and the court proceedings that have happened this year, that they're like, listen, this guy's got other stuff going on. And so a lot of people are pretty adamant that both Keefe D and P. Diddy in some way are involved with this, but again, they both declare their innocence. So back in 2023, this time on July 18th, LVPD actually obtained a search warrant in connection with Tupac's murder. This resulted in the collection of hard drives, computers, and magazine articles about his death. These were all in Davis's custody. These were all things he had. And so it either looks like somebody that knew something or was directly involved or was uniquely, shall I say, obsessed or interested in this hit.
True.
And so, yeah, it's a rival, like East Coast, West Coast thing. It's in your genre. It's in the world of hip hop. So maybe you would be interested, but we won't really know because Davis remains in custody as he awaits his trial, which has been delayed until February 9th of 2026.
Oh,
so
wow.
Maybe there will be an update here to explore.
Wow, this is still current, like really current.
And this will put it nearly 30 years after the fact.
Jesus.
It'll be 30 years. Yeah, September 2026. Wow. All right. So that's Tupac. Those are the theories. There's a lot of other fringe theories, of course, but these are the ones that are most prominent and even speculative, but strongest. Now let's move over to Biggie. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Shopify. If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button that you've seen all over the place at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy because it remembers all your settings and card number? Well, that is Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. Shopify gives you that leg up from day one with hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express your brand style. Forget about having to code it all. Tackle all those important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. Spread your brand's word with built-in marketing and email tools to find and keep new customers. And that iconic purple Shop Pay button that's used by millions of businesses around the world, it can be yours. It's why Shopify is the best converting checkout on the planet, and your customers already love it. I've used Shopify in the past, and it was a breeze to set up. I love the interface. I love how seamless it is to tie your product, your brand, into this website and make it feel so cohesive and professional, even if you're a team of one. It really is a super powerful tool. Task Force, if you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time for you to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/redweb. Go to shopify.com/redweb. Again, that's shopify.com/redweb. This episode of Red Web is also sponsored by BetterHelp. We turn to some funny places for support. Not everyone is a therapist, and not everyone is the one. Find your right match with BetterHelp. Now, we've all done it before. We turn to our barista, our hairdresser, or a random stranger in the bathroom for life advice. They can come from anywhere, honestly. I like to turn to my group chat. But when you're dealing with dating, relationships, anxiety, depression, these are the people that we come to rely on, but they might not have all the answers. Instead, you can get guidance from a licensed therapist online with BetterHelp. BetterHelp has been helping people find their match for over 10 years and have a 4.9 rating out of 1.7 million client session reviews. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, serving over 5 million people globally. You can get matched quickly with someone who fits your needs and switch therapists at any time at no extra cost. It's flexible, fully online, and you can pause your subscription whenever you need to. From my experience, therapy is an important tool, a very essential part of life sometimes, and finding the right person to speak to is fundamental to your therapy journey. That's why I really do appreciate BetterHelp, because they make it a little bit more digestible, less overwhelming to how you begin, and the fact that they help you find the right person out the gate is, I think, very important. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Find the one with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/redweb. That's betterhelp.com/redweb. In the early hours of the morning of March 9th, 1997, Biggie had left an after-party hosted by Vibe Magazine, Quest Records, and Tanqueray Gin at the Peterson Automotive Museum in LA. The party was star-studded, and he had a large entourage with him, filling several cars. Biggie had been in LA for the past few weeks promoting and filming music videos for his upcoming album Life After Death, which, again, I want to earmark, knowing where we're headed, it only plays into these ideas that either one or both of these guys faked their death.
Yeah.
Life After Death is the album. So he was actually scheduled to travel to London on the morning of March 8th, but this is when he decided to stay here in LA and attend the party that I was talking about. It's unclear if he stayed specifically for this party or if he intended to spend some time in LA or what the reasons were, but ultimately this decision, this last minute change, would be a fatal one. As his SUV was leaving that night, they were stopped at an intersection, Wilshire Boulevard and South Fairfax Avenue. While this seems to be true, accounts of what happened after this point remain technically unclear. Now, some reports state that while they were stopped, a dark Chevrolet Impala SS pulled up alongside the Suburban. The driver of the Impala is described as a black male who was wearing a light blue suit and bow tie. This man reportedly rolled down his window, drew a 9mm pistol, fired 6 times into the Suburban, and off they went.
It's wild to be wearing like essentially an outfit.
Dressed up for the job.
Be all dressed up for the occasion and easy
right.
to... I don't know, you know what I mean? Instead of just like, I don't know, this is a random person in just a hoodie, no labels. To be
right.
like, this outfit, this color, bow tie, what?
Right, it's very specific too. But to me, that seems to indicate, was this another party goer? Someone who was also dressed up for the occasion.
Oh,
and then,
good point.
Yeah, maybe left and followed. But so that's one version of what happened. Regardless of what happened, he was shot. This is true. Again, it's a matter of what the details are. There are 2 different reports. It's unclear. So other reports state that a man walked up to Biggie's vehicle in a non-threatening manner. Biggie then rolled down his window to give him a high five before the man then pulled out a gun and started firing. The gunman then escaped in a dark sedan and sped off into the night. Regardless, Biggie was hit by 4 of the 6 bullets, and his entourage rushed him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Now, it's unclear if any of the remaining bullets, those 2 bullets, hit the other passengers or anybody else. We don't know. At this point, doctors performed an emergency thoracotomy, but were unable to save him, essentially opening up the thoracic part of the body to get in there and try to get these bullets out or help seal up these wounds. But again, they were unable to save him, and unfortunately he was pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m. And again, I am blown away by the youth involved here. Biggie Smalls died at the age of 24.
Damn, they're so young.
Yeah.
Wow, 24. These 2 could have put out so many like genre and life-changing tracks and albums. Yeah, I feel like the 90s, early 2000s, like that kind of stuff, like it was pretty prominent.
Man, these are honestly voices I would love to hear now. Mm-hmm. Like what they would have to say now. It's crazy, dude. My adult life barely began at 24. That's like where, I was hired, actually just shy of 24, I was hired at Rooster Teeth, and then off goes my career all the way up to this moment. But so I won't discount the fact that they're adults, they know what they're saying, they know what they're doing, but at the same time, it's the lost potential. It's the fact that they're still figuring themselves out, maturing into who they're going to be and who they could have been. I mean, it's wild, I don't know. Have you ever heard of like this idea of Club 27? A lot of famous people that have died at the young age of 27?
No.
Yeah, I guess, well, I don't have a list off the top of my head, but a lot of people have been killed, accidentally killed, or just died of unfortunate circumstances in Hollywood, in the music industry, just at the age of 27. It's become this like, I think Kurt Cobain was one of the most prominent figures of that Club 27, so to speak. But this is wild, 25, 24. But with that, we have one major theory behind the hit on Biggie, because again, regardless of how you look at it, and despite the fact that he had a multi-car entourage with him, there's not much else to be said, whether it be fear of retaliation or really just not seeing anything. I mean, I have to imagine this was deeply unexpected. No one is expecting someone to roll up and pop off. And so a lot of information's just lost.
It's just crazy too how you just follow someone's car like that and then just unload.
Yeah. So, Suge Knight, we come back to him. In connection to the previous theory regarding Suge Knight, some have theorized that he ordered the hit on both rappers so as to take the pressure off himself. This combines with the theory that Tupac may have wanted to leave Death Row Records, hence why Knight may have wanted both rappers out of the picture. Kind of also maybe in this weird way of like, well, I can get rid of a rival in Biggie, but I can also get rid of a thorn in my side with Tupac, and by doing that, maybe I could pin them against each other, and I can walk away scot-free having solved a couple of my problems.
Damn. I still don't think it's that. I mean, because he already had other people under the label that were just throwing out bangers at the time, too. But who knows what the actual finances for the record label was.
Right. Again, deeply speculative. You could wax
it really
poetic about what it could be or why. Because the main question to me is like, why would you off one of the greatest members of your record label who could obviously bring you great wealth and more growth?
Mm-hmm.
That's just my instinctual question. But
it's the assumption that he's going to leave.
Yeah, I suppose so. It just feels a bit dramatic.
But also, like, he'd probably be tied up in contracts. And then obviously there's going to be disclaimers of like, if you leave beyond your early from your contract, you have to pay this much, etc. But
yeah,
I don't know. When egos come into play, who knows?
Yeah. So from here, I mean, that's the brief iteration of him hiring for both hits. That's the open-close speculation there. So now we're going to continue talking about Suge Knight from the realm of only hiring the hit on Biggie. Other theories suggest that Knight, again, ordered the hit on Biggie in retaliation, believing that it would avenge Tupac's death. These theories have stated that Knight had an in with the local police departments, which would explain the lack of thorough investigation into Biggie's death. An LAPD detective named Russell Poole was part of the initial investigation into the murder. Poole worked diligently on this case and came to the conclusion that his colleague, David Mack, had a part in the orchestration of Biggie's murder. In December of 1997, Mack had been arrested for a bank robbery where $722,000 was taken. During the investigation for robbery, it was discovered that Mack had ties to the members of the Blood Gang who were affiliated with Death Row Records. This connection would raise red flags for Poole. According to him, two detectives interviewed a jailhouse informant in the summer of 1997. The informant said that Biggie's death was a contract hit, and the hitman's first name is Amir. The first person to visit Mack in jail was his good friend, Amir Muhammad. In addition to this connection and their similarities in their relationships to the Blood Gang, Mack and Knight were both, also from Compton, California. With all of these connecting pieces, Poole believed that there was a reasonable lead in Mack, that maybe he was a suspect. Despite his evidence, Poole claims the police department never investigated Mack in regards to the murder. So Poole also claimed that the police chief failed to properly investigate the corruption happening within this department. This is a separate, kind of a side quest kind of claim, but it lays the foundation that there might be some sort of corruption happening within the walls of this police department, which opens the door for Suge Knight to interfere and maybe pay people off to look the other way in the case that Mack is, in theory, culpable for this hit. Admittedly, I'm truncating a lot, and a huge set of props need to go out once again to Kat for collecting all this information. Again, I feel like this is one of those episodes we could do a TED Talk of like 59 episodes. So I'm greatly simplifying that kind of theory, and there are documentaries out there if you'd like to explore deeper. But moving on, a retired LAPD detective named Greg Kading noted that Knight was in a county jail at the time of Biggie's murder, meaning he would have needed help in order to orchestrate it, that he wouldn't directly do it. But let's build on that. Kading claims that a woman would visit Knight often, claiming to be his legal assistant so they could have unmonitored visitations. The woman reportedly gave a statement to police in 2009 under the condition that she would remain anonymous. She claimed that Knight had instructed her to help kill Biggie, and she communicated with Mob Piru gang member Wardell Poochie Faust to make that happen. Now, I will say, just firing from the hip here, I can think of a couple other reasons why a lady might visit and claim to be a legal assistant so they have unmonitored visitations.
Do you know what I mean? Okay, yeah, I'm just saying. Could be also that. Good chance it is that.
But this statement, though, this statement is saying a lot. It is saying, keep me anonymous, but I'll say this. I mean, to be fair, anyone can go just say anything since they're anonymous, which keeps their security set and in check. But does she have a reason to lie? Would she have a reason to turn on somebody that she had gone and seen and was probably close to, in this case, Knight?
True. Like, what would be the motive?
Conscience, something like that.
Yeah, it could be as simple as that. It really could.
I don't know. I mean, again, this is where there's no real concrete evidence that suggests that Knight orchestrated this hit. So again, we're still technically in the realm of speculation. There's a few clues to connect here, and we do have this anonymous source saying that he instructed her to help kill Biggie. But aside from that, we don't have, shall I say, a smoking gun. We don't have
not at all
the hard evidence. And with that, we end the kind of main theory behind the hit on Biggie. It has kind of an A or a B solution to it between Mac and Knight, but ultimately it claims that Knight was the guy at the top of it all. Yeah. So in closing, while we may never really know what happened on the nights of Tupac and Biggie's murders, the information continues to come out. We will learn, hopefully, maybe some new information next February when the trial continues. But as you know, Fredo, I mean, their deaths rocked the hip hop community, and it prompted a movement for unity, calming that coastal rivalry because...
Gone too far.
Yeah. I wasn't really in that scene. Midwest Indiana boy doesn't know much about it at the age of 6 or 7. But looking back on it, yeah, this West Coast, East Coast thing really didn't continue much after that. And I think a lot of people, even looking back on it, it ended up getting way more violent, way bigger than it really ever was. It was never really meant to be that big, heated thing. It was kind of a tit for tat, to my understanding.
Yeah. I mean, with sports teams, you're proud of your team, your side, etc.
Sure,
and then it escalated to violence.
Well, yeah, and you're proud of people that grew up where you grew up.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up how I grew up, and I aspire to be that. And you are doing this, and you're speaking your truth, and you're doing all this.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of heart and a lot of community in that. But since these murders, Bad Boy Records has remained active and is now part of Love Records. Death Row Records filed for bankruptcy, so they did have financial issues, but this was in 2006. It was sold at auction in 2009. And then, interestingly, in 2022, Snoop Dogg bought the rights to the brand. So, in a way, Death Row Records, at least as a brand, had a little bit of a homecoming.
Right. Yeah, going back to Snoop.
Yeah. Kind of coming to a close here, as I feel like we all knew in some way, maybe without the details, the friendship, the fallout, the rivalry of Tupac and the Notorious B.I.G. is considered one of the many pillars of the pop culture zeitgeist in America. And their rivalry, their untimely deaths will live on in infamy and will likely long outlive many generations. I feel like it would be very hard for anyone to forget this moment in American pop culture.
I completely agree. They were very influential.
Damn. I just still think about what could have been. And I think honestly, the loss of life is always tough. I mean, it's never deserved. But
yeah. I think it was just a lot of people with a lot of money, and they grew up in situations and neighborhoods where you got to stand up for yourself. And that kind of that's hard to shake off,
Yeah.
People insulting you, and when you grow up in certain situations where it's if you don't stand up for yourself, then it's known to neighborhood that you're a pushover, then you get pushed over even more. And it's hard to shake off in terms of oh, now I have money and fame, but now, other people are trying to press me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't let them press me without me pushing back. And then the male ego comes into play too. And then money. And it's just a mess.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And once that line in the sand is drawn, they're keeping it firm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's understandable. But man, this is the end of part 2 of our discussion, the exploration of the life, the relationships, the West Coast, East Coast rivalry, and ultimately the untimely deaths of Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah.
Fredo, I know we talked about this in part 1. It's something we all know about, but was there anything that really blew your mind as we kind of got into the details of this one? Anything that you just did not expect, or questions you still have on the case? Anything like that?
No, I mean, I think I knew more about the case than I thought I did, to be honest. I think that's why I didn't have too many questions. It was kind of like a refresher for me. I think just didn't really watch a documentary or anything like that. I think just by word of mouth, just hearing about the different pieces and the players and a lot about how it unfolded. I was like, oh, okay, it's kind of like a recap.
I feel similarly. There's some details that I was like, whoa, I had no idea. But I think I also learned almost by osmosis. You just hear a lot of these details over time and they just kind of sink in. But you, especially growing up in Cali, growing up in the Bay Area, this is a bigger part of the culture where you grew up, as opposed to me in the sticks of Indiana. But even where I grew up, you can't help but hear about it and learn about it.
They had a huge impact. I mean, especially during the times where like there was a lot of pushback on rap and the music genre as a whole.
Yep.
And you had a lot of people trying to pioneer that and change the game. And so it was a very influential time in rap and hip hop.
Absolutely. I think it was really interesting too to see the roots of both of these individuals and how they played into their messaging and what they stood for, what they fought for, what they rapped with, like lyrically. All very, very fascinating, but deeply unfortunate.
Damn.
But with that, I want to give some shout outs. Task Force, you guys are lovely. Thank you all so much for your direct support. If you want to support this podcast, get it ad free, get all sorts of exclusives that we rain down upon you, head over to redwebpod.com. It is our Patreon page where we have lots going on. I said it at the top of the show, but we have those things this week. And to shout out a few names in particular, we have Lewis Rich, who is the newest member of the Task Force. Welcome aboard. We have Johnny G. I don't know why, but I love that name, who is a buff scientist member. And then Fredo, get your quill and parchment ready. Dip that in the ink. I know you're sophisticated. We got Clint from PS3, G.
So I haven't got him yet.
Zarathustra, just to name a few. Thank you, Squonk members. And with that, we come to a close. But Fredo, our road never ends.
No, it does not.
So I'll see you right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.